It's so important to know your audience. Whether you're doing a workshop, a training program, or you've been invited to speak at a conference as a keynote speaker, really important that you know your audience. One of the mistakes that can happen is when someone, you, me, the speaker, delivers a powerful message and it's done with polish. The problem is it doesn't resonate with the audience and you miss the mark. So how do I make sure our message resonates, connects, links, is relevant, has impact for the audience? And that's one of the keys to successful public speaking. So today I'm going to share with you 6 steps to ensure you know your audience before you start speaking and why it matters. So good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Dew, public speaking trainer and coach, and my aim is to help you be more effective, more confident, and more influential every time you get before a group of people. Let's get started. As always, a little bit of housekeeping. Participate, ask questions as we go, put in your own comments, feel free to take notes. Bearing in mind I am recording this webinar and it will be available for you to review should you wish to later on. So don't worry too much about if you miss something or maybe I move over something very quickly. And more importantly, think and apply to your own circumstances. And you can reflect on something in the past. What could have you done differently to better know your audience, to better engage your audience, to better connect with your audience? Or maybe you've got something coming up. What are you going to do extra to ensure you really know your audience and your message resonates, connects, has impact with that upcoming audience? So let's get started. First of all, so why does it matter? Well, first of all, it enables you to tailor your message. Tailor your message to the audience so you do get that connection. Why does it matter to that audience? What's the issues facing that audience? How does your message help your audience move forward, help them achieve their goals, their key performance indicators? How does your message help them overcome their barriers, their limitations, the struggles? When you know what your audience needs, what they want, you can tailor your message and your content to better match their expectations. Important to adjust your language and your delivery style, understanding what the audience uses in terms of their language. What is it that their predominant learning style? If you've got a group of engineers, you're probably going to be more data-driven and have some more models and plans on your PowerPoint slides, that language that resonates with engineers. If you've got a group of health professionals, social workers, health and wellbeing practitioners, you're probably going to focus less on data, less on dollars, less on money, and more on well-being and work-life balance and quality of life outcomes. So you're going to target your message and change the language depending on who is in the room. An audience loves it when you pay them a cultural compliment. In other words, you know a little bit about their profession, you know a little bit about their background, you know a little bit about their culture, and you haven't just stood on stage and doing the same talk you do every time. I've spoken in Malaysia, I've spoken in Singapore, I've spoken in the Philippines. I work over east as well as here in Perth, Western Australia, and there are those nuances between the different groups. Certainly here in Australia, I love to acknowledge the traditional landowners. And it's not the same people each time. In Bendigo is different to Mildura, is different to Karratha, is different to Port Hedland. And by me acknowledging the traditional landowners, at least once every 5 sessions, someone comes up to me and says, wow, I'm really amazed that you, a West Australian here in Bendigo, know who the traditional landowners. That is really good to know. I'm impressed. And they may be an Indigenous person, they may not be an Indigenous person, but that cultural respect, that cultural compliment, by doing my work beforehand, knowing my audience, where I'm going. In Malaysia, I was speaking on inclusion and diversity, and there's certain aspects of inclusion, gender fluidity, sexual orientation, that I cannot talk about within a Malaysian audience as a general rule. So I need to eliminate that part of my inclusion and diversity talk when speaking in Malaysia. Knowing all of this beforehand helps you build connect, build common ground, and more importantly, it helps you to avoid those faux pas, those foot in your mouth when you say the wrong thing. And I've seen speakers, they say something and straight away they've alienated, they've got the audience against them and they never get them back. They've said the wrong thing, they've been culturally unaware, they've not been aware of something that's happened in the media and they've mentioned it, offended people, and bang, you lose your audience. So to avoid offending or alienating your audience, really good to do that. Know your audience, those steps I'm sharing with you at the moment. So that's why knowing who's in the room matters. That's why understanding your audience before you go on stage really matters. So, step 1, 6 tips to make sure you know your audience. First tip, do a cultural audit. What are the cultural norms of that group? And I'm not talking about necessarily Australian Aboriginals, but most groups have cultural norms. So by doing a cultural audit, you can understand what their cultural norms are. What are the expectations of that group? What are they hoping to get out of your workshop? Are there any sensitivities not to mention? I have worked with BHP and I've worked with Rio Tinto in the past, and I've been on site training, presenting immediately after major issues that have occurred in the media. And I know that I need to not mention those issues. There are sensitivities around that. And so by doing your audit, you can be aware of what's happening, any cultural sensitivities. So for example, when I do my Overcome Your Fear of Public Speaking workshop, I get everyone to do a little icebreaker presentation. And it goes like this, 3 things. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about your work, and what would you like to learn today? Now, if I've got someone who is Indigenous in the room, question number 1, tell me a little bit about yourself, is not ordinarily a comfortable question or a question that an Aboriginal person would talk about. So I need to reframe that question. Tell me a little bit about where you come from. Tell me a little bit about your mob and your family, because Aboriginal people generally don't like talking about themselves, and their identity is focused on their family, their land, where they come from. So just by changing that question a little bit, tell me a little bit about where you come from. Tell me a little bit about your family and your mob. that enables them to talk about where they come from, where they lived, where they grew up, without saying I in their response. Whereas I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up here. I've got 2 brothers. I'm married. So that little sensitivity makes a big difference. And I mentioned international and diverse audiences. Shoes off in Malaysia. Don't stand on a chair with your shoes on in Malaysia. And sometimes speakers, they stand up on a chair just so they can see more of the audience, especially in a workshop when there is no platform, no stage. What international or diverse differences do you need to be aware of? A little bit unrelated to public speaking, but I provide lunch, morning and afternoon tea. So I always check on, are there any dietary nuances, dietary requirements? And invariably, there's 1 or 2 people that gluten-free, vegan, or some other peculiarity of dietary requirements that I cater for. And they don't have to worry about it because I've got that base covered. Some people travel with their own food because they know the catering is not going to be suitable. My workshop, you don't have to worry about that because I'm going to do that pre-work to ensure that your catering requirements are needed. A little bit off the side from speaking and message and connecting, but what questions can you ask? What cultural audit can you do just to prepare yourself? Say the right things, don't say the wrong things. Meet their expectations from a cultural perspective. Tip number 2, do a pre-workshop questionnaire. And I usually only have 3 or 4 questions around public speaking. The other workshop I do is thinking and speaking off the cuff. And I'm also training in the area of facilitation skills, how to be a great facilitator. For my public speaking skills, my questions go like this. Can you give me an example of the situations that you've done public speaking in the past and what was the outcome? What's the biggest issue? Question 2, what's the biggest issue you face when public speaking? Number 3, what 1 or 2 skills around public speaking would you like to learn from me? And I get about a 70% response. And to be honest, I can already map what those responses are going to be. If I could control nerves, what do I do with my hands? I get really flustered and my mind goes blank. I kind of know most of those, but by engaging them, I'm then just tailoring that content a little bit more to their needs. And often, especially when I'm going to do a feedback and I'm adding value to a workshop, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you at public speaking at the moment, with 1 very low, 10 very high? And I'll get a measurement of 4, 5, 3. And then after the workshop, I can send another survey. How confident are you now of public speaking? And usually I get a shift of 1, maybe 2 points, which helps demonstrate that there has been some value in the workshop. What questions can you ask to make sure that you connect with your audience, that your message resonates with your audience, that your message solves a problem that they have? Step 3, ask the conference organizer or the HR manager about the goals, about their goals, about what they want to achieve, about the problem that is happening in their organization. I use the conference organizer when I'm speaking at conferences, and I'll ask them, so what is the theme of the conference? What's your goal? What does success look like? If I absolutely nailed my presentation, what would you want everyone to be talking about? And that response from the conference organizer just helps me really tighten up my core message and work out what stories, what messages are best going to resonate with that audience. So what's the audience mix? Who's going to be in the room? Are we mostly engineers? Are we technical people? Are we numbers people, accountants? So I need to be dollar driven. Are we social workers, health professionals, nurses, doctors? So I'm going to be less data driven, less dollar driven, more health outcome, more well-being outcome. What's the audience mix? I spoke a few years back at an EAPA conference, executive assistants, personal assistants, and the audience mix was 80% female, 20% male. Most people were long-term EAPAs, and their role was to assist the GM, the directors, their managers, that they were the PA or the executive assistants too. Very helpful in constructing my presentation for these executive assistants and personal assistants. What does a win look like for you? Once again, after my presentation, what do you want everyone to be talking about? What do you want everyone to be doing? What do you want everyone to be thinking? This helps me make sure that I move people in the direction that the conference organizer or the HR manager wants me to move them in. And finally, ask the organizer, what's your expectations? What do you want to achieve in this workshop? And is it skills? Is it skill development? Is it new knowledge? Is it shift their emotional response so they now feel or believe in their heart that we can solve this complex problem, that as an organisation we can come back from this setback? What is the expectation? Train them to do public speaking, train them to respond to questions. I want them trained to be able to do media. So when ABC or Channel 7 or Channel 9 rings up, I want these staff members to be able to speak confidently and effectively on TV. I want my football players, when they do media, to be able to speak concisely, confidently, without ums and ahs and you knows and likes. What are the expectations for you, who is booking me, after I've spoken, trained, presented at this workshop or this conference? Check their website out, stalk them, Google them. What's their missions and their values? And if you can align your message with their mission and values, one organisation, one of their values was courage. And so I was able to use my overcoming fear. And overcoming fear is not the absence of fear, it's the courage to do things that you need to do with the fear. And by reframing that, I aligned my message to their value. The tone and the language, acronyms, they are a pain. But understanding and speaking their language, once again, shows you've done the research, you've taken the time, you respect that audience. You're not just doing the same presentation all the time. Recent initiatives they've done, projects, if you can talk about something you've seen them do, some projects, some successes, some wins, once again, you've done the research, that's going to help you connect and your message resonate. I mentioned media. Why don't you check the media? Have they been in the media? Remember those things not to mention, those sensitivities within BHP and Rio Tinto? They were in the media. They were big stories. They were front page stories. They were reputational negatives for these organisations. I need to not mention those. I need to steer away from those unless it's specifically my goal. Maybe if I was a trauma counsellor or a change management consultant, I may need to address those specific issues, but that's not my role as a public speaking trainer. And finally, you can use AI to go away and prepare a brief on the company, the audience. You can ask them to look at EA and PAs, executive assistants and personal assistants in Perth in 2025. What are the biggest issues this industry, EAs and PAs, is facing? What are the problems in their career transitions? What are their problems holding them back from moving up from EA, PAs into managers themselves? And you'll come back with a brief. I use Perplexity, and Perplexity cites its sources of information. You can use ChatGPT, you can use Gemini, but why not use AI to prepare a brief? And the next step, research the industry or organisation type. I mentioned acronyms. What's the jargon and the trends in that industry? Is it under threat by AI? They reckon that financial planners in the next 5 to 10 years, AI, you'll put your information, your financial information, your risk profile, your income, and AI will prepare a beautiful financial plan for you. What are the current challenges in that industry? What are they facing? What are the risks? What industry is likely to take them over? What are the current challenges? Do your research and tailor your examples and avoid remarks that just are basically tone deaf, those remarks that people say all the time. Come up with your own remarks, your own comments that once again illustrate that you understand their industry. And tip number 6, arrive early, connect beforehand with some attendees and ask a few questions. One of the things with conference organisers, I say, can you give me 4 or 5 attendees, 4 or 5 people who registered? And I'll chat informally with them before the event. Hey, pleased to meet you. My name's Peter. I'm going to be speaking on your event. My topic is this. What's happening for you? What's holding you back? Ask what they hope to learn and ask what problems are they facing in their industry. If it's a HR manager, I can ask to speak to 1 or 2 of the participants, 1 or 2 of the managers or the directors or the team leaders they're sending along to my workshop. Health and safety meetings in the mining sector can be quite boring. 6 a.m. in the morning, everyone's asleep on their feet and they're sharing important safety messages. How do I make my health and safety messages engaging? I can find this out by speaking to some participants beforehand. So in summary, do a cultural audit. Are there any cultural nuances you need to be aware of? Can you play them a cultural compliment? Do a pre-workshop survey. Fill in these 3 questions. I get about a 70% response. Ask the person who's booking you, the conference organiser or the HR manager, to be clear of what their goals. Stalk them on their website. Research the industry. Stalk them in the media. Use AI to prepare a brief. And finally, connect with a few attendees. Speak to the person you're going to be training. Speak to some people you're going to be speaking to at the conference. What's their expectations? All of those will help you to connect and make sure your message resonates, not put your foot in it, be culturally respective. Really important part of public speaking, know who's in the room, know what their expectations are, know what they want from you, know what problem they're experiencing. Upcoming workshops. I'm travelling around a little bit, so I've got 2 in Perth in September, my presentation skills, thinking and speaking off the cuff, up to Darwin late September, how to have difficult conversations, and over to Melbourne in October, winning presentation skills. These are open public workshops. Most of my workshops nowadays are corporate in-house workshops. So if you or your organisation would like your staff trained in public speaking, I can come to your venue, to your organisation and run a 1-day workshop. The next webinar, for those of you who like to follow my webinars, 5 strategies to be more influential when public speaking. The reverse of being influential is you are just hot air. You're speaking, you're saying stuff, but you're having no impact. And that is a waste of time, a waste of energy. So influence is why we do public speaking. We want people to shift, to change, to adopt a new way of thinking. So 5 strategies to be more influential. Monday, the 18th of August. You know how to reach me? Mobile, email, and of course my website. And if I can ever be of any assistance to you in the future, please let me know. Now, remember, if you know your audience, if you know what their needs are, if you know their expectations, their problems, their issues, and you craft your message to address that audience, their issues, not the same message to every audience the same, but specific for that audience, that industry, that group, you're going to be seen as an engaging, purposeful, and influential speaker who has impact. Take the time to know who's in the room before you walk in the room. This is Peter Dew, public speaking trainer and coach.